All right, so we talked about this idea that as you pull on a tendon, there's a stretchy end near the muscle and a stiff end near the bone. And overall, what it's going to do is the stretchy end is going to protect the muscle from injury. But the stretchiness of the tendon is also it's not an absolute thing. So one of the properties that you have in tendons is tendons are what are called viscoelastic tissues. And a viscoelastic tissue means that it acts like a visco, which is a fluid, and an elastic, which is like steel or any kind of elastic solid. So it's not only if you pull on it and you have if you're pulling on a tissue like or a substance like steel, what you would see is a straight line. As you pull hard on it, it causes that tissue or that structure to stretch. But a viscoelastic material has this property where it starts off and it's really flexible, and then as it goes through, after a while, it goes through this exponential increase in stiffness, and then it's going to start to fail. Okay? And then the other property of viscoelasticity is when you load it slowly, so this is the yellow line here is loading it slowly, what you can see is it stays stretchy much longer, and you strain or you pull it further for the same amount of load. So if we load here at like 12.5, which is about here, if I load it quickly, I'm only going to stretch that tendon about 2.5%. If I load it moderate level, now I'm about 6%. If I load it really slowly, I've strained that tissue, I've pulled that tissue 10% its length. It's already gotten much, much longer. So this is a simple thing that happens, and it's very similar to a pool. All right. So if you're in a pool and you put your hands at the bottom of the pool because you're in the shallow end, and now you just lower yourself down really, really slowly, what'll happen is you'll barely be able to sense when you leave the air and go into the water. Because the water, when you're going slowly, those water molecules act as little molecules, separate individual molecules. And the separate little water molecule is tiny and it doesn't really do much. It's just going to go around you. And so what you do is you let yourself down. You barely feel yourself enter the water because all those little water molecules just go around. But now if you're up on the deck and you're running along and you jump and you slam into the same position that you just let yourself down, because you're going faster and you hit the water with greater speed. Now those water molecules can't act as individual molecules, so now they act as a sheet at the beginning. And the sheet of water molecules is not going to be, it's basically a lot stiffer because the water molecules can't slide around you. That means when they do that, there's not a lot of resistance. When they work as a sheet, there's more resistance. And that resistance is what we call the stress here. Okay, so if you're running down the side, you land, bam, you get a red belly because there's more resistance because the water molecules work as a sheet and not as individual molecules. Now, if you go up to the 3-meter diving board and you go out to the end and you get distracted as you're going and then you end up smashing down onto your chest the same way that you did before. Now, there's all kinds of sirens going off because the ambulance is coming for you because you've ruptured internal organs. Because you're up so high, you're going so much faster. When you hit the water, now the water molecules, it's not even like a sheet of water molecule. It's like a sheet of metal. And basically you hit it, and because you're going so much faster, the water molecules have no chance to move. And so now it's as if you hit cement or steel. You hit that surface and it's really, really hard. And you hit that surface really, really hard because the water molecules don't have time to move. The same thing happens in a tendon. If I pull on it slowly, I can stretch back and I can put my arm way behind my head. Okay? That's because I move it slowly, I load it slowly, and it stretches a long way at a given load. But if somebody is going to grab me from behind and pull my arm really quickly, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the tendon, or I'm going to rupture the tendon, or I'm going to pull the muscle, or I'm going to pull the tendon right off the bone. Okay, that's because when I'm loaded really, really fast, now what I've done is it's a lot stiffer structure. And when you load a stiffer structure, you see all this area under the curve? That's the energy that the tissue has absorbed. And so when the tissue breaks, it goes, and it really just, it just completely blows up within it. All right. So the only thing I want you to take from this is if we move slowly, our tendon acts like those little individual molecules of water, and those little individual molecules of water can stretch really easily. And they can let all the water out from between the collagen fibers within the tendon, and that's now going to mean that the tendon is super stretchy. If you load faster, you're going to get less stretchiness and stiffer tendon. And that stiffer tendon is because the collagen molecules are working more like a sheet within the tendon. And when they work as a sheet, the water can't get out and the tissue is stiffer. And then when you move faster still, again, now it's just a jerk, a really quick movement. And now there's no time for the water to move. And so as you pull, basically all the water is fighting back and is making the tissue even stiffer. All right, so we've got this compliant end near the muscle, stiff end near the bone. When we load it slowly, the compliant end is even more compliant. And when we load it fast, the compliant end becomes stiffer. All right, so how does the compliant end stay compliant and the stiff end stay stiff? Well, it comes down to this structure, which is the myotendinous junction. The myotendinous junction is the interface between the muscle and the tendon. And what you can see is it doesn't come together like this. It doesn't come together with the two tissues meeting head on. If it did, and you pulled on one, all you would do is you would have very little surface area connecting the two. And when you pulled, you'd be loading in tension. That's a direct pull in tension, okay? So what it is, and what you can see here is there's like little fingers coming in here. And we call those, if you're technical about these things, we call those digits. We call our fingers digits. And you can see that what this is it's an interdigitation, where you combine the digits of one with the digits of another. This is exactly the same thing you did as a kid when you were jumping fences. You didn't put your hands together like this and say, okay, put your foot in my hand, because what's going to happen is they're going to step and there's just going to be nothing. You can't resist that. You can't hold your hand together and lift them up over the fence. So what did you do? You went like this, because now you've increased the surface area of connection between your two hands, just like the muscle and the tendon have done. And now when somebody steps in here, it's going to lock in, because now instead of loading in tension like this, we're loading in shear, where we're sliding things past each other. And in shear, there's much more resistance, because there's feedback and there's resistance from the material all around. Okay, so this is a much stronger surface now. And now, when I load this surface slowly, I can actually load it so that the collagen molecules are working as individual molecules. So I can pull on this one a little bit differently than I pull on this one. And now what I get is I get a little shear in the muscle end of the tendon. All right. And if this movement is really important for setting up our stretchy end of our tendon and our stiff end of our tendon, then if we were to make it so the muscle couldn't produce any movement, we would get rid of the stretchy end of the tendon. And that's in fact what we did. So if you take a muscle and you cut the nerve to it so it doesn't work anymore, or if you put yourself, or you've broken your ankle and you're going to be in a boot, and you're going to put your leg in a boot, and you're going to get your foot out of the boot after 6 weeks when your bone is healed, now what's happened is your muscle's gotten smaller, sure, but also the other thing that's happened is you haven't been able to produce any force. And what you can see here is that muscle end of the tendon that used to be way over here, used to be really stretchy and compliant over here, is now way up here. All right? So this whole structure has become stiffer. And so when you get out of the boot, now you can't really move your ankle anymore because your Achilles tendon is really tight. Okay? And so the reason that it's really tight is because you haven't been getting those shear forces at the muscle end of the tendon. And when those shear forces occur, what happens is the sliding of the collagen molecules causes the little crosslinks between the collagens to break. And those crosslinks are important for making the tissue stiffer. So the fewer crosslinks you have, the less stiff it is. So when you have that sliding, when you're doing heavy, slow movements, that's going to cause the collagen molecules to slide past each other because you're moving slowly. They're working as individual molecules. And when they slide, you're going to break the little crosslinks near the end or near that muscle end of the tendon. And that's going to decrease the stiffness of the muscle end of the tendon. And so what we do when we train is we train the muscle end of the tendon. If we train in certain ways, we're going to make that stiffer, and we're going to shift the muscle end towards the stiffer part. And if we train in other ways, we're going to make it less stiff. And so if you'd done this with your Achilles, what they would do is have you take a heavy weight and you'd move it slowly. And you would probably do an eccentric load because you can take the most weight with an eccentric load. And you would have it do a very slow eccentric load. And what you would do is you would get, by moving slowly, you get these nice slow shear between the collagens. That's going to break the cross links near the muscle end of the tendon. And that's going to cause us to regenerate this compliant end of the muscle end of the tendon, and that's going to protect us from injury.